You're listening to WPPM LP Philadelphia 106.5 FM, and you're listening to the What's Next radio show and Ray's Latino Talk podcast, the home for stacking truth. That's right, we don't BS nobody here on politics and today's hottest news headlines. This is your host, Ray Collazo, and joining me today are the hosts of the Viera Vida radio show, Julie Viera and Chantel Brown.
Hey,
ladies, welcome to the show.
Hey, this is Julie.
Thank you so much for having us, Chantel.
And we are Viera Vida.
You know, my favorite, when I was a kid, I know I look much younger than this, but I'm actually an 80s child.
No.
And when I was a kid, my favorite episodes of TV shows, when they would cross, like, collaborate. So, like, you know, when celebrities went on, when celebrities went on Love Boat and the Brady Bunch went to the Jeffersons, it was all these creative little specials. People would go on Fantasy Island. Okay. Tattoo would go hang out with Webster. Who knows? But anyway, this is a fantastic collaboration, and you're going to hear more about the Viera Vida Experience in a second. Later on in the show, we're going to celebrate the mothers in our lives leading up to Mother's Day weekend, reveal insights from new polling on Latino voters. Like to hear what they think about this election, no question. And hear more about Viera Vida's summer plans. Summer's coming up, my friends.
I can't believe it.
Very nice. But first, we want to learn more about the Viera Vida Experience. So let's start with you, Julie, the founder of the Viera Vida brand. Can we begin with sharing our audience, where did the Viera Vida journey begin for you?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having us here.
Yes.
We're really excited. We've been trying to do this for a while.
Long time coming, no question about it.
Right. We've been talking about it forever. So Viera Vida, wow. The evolution of Viera Vida has been really interesting. It was emotional. I actually started Viera Vida by myself at first as a video and YouTube and blog channel, and that was because I was pretty much bedridden almost for 2 years. If I were to step outside of my house or even outside of my bed, I would lose consciousness right away. It's still a condition I'm battling now, but it's much more under control. But I felt really unfulfilled. I wasn't allowed to drive. I couldn't literally even go to the bathroom by myself. So what I could do is lay in the bed, and I thought, what way to feel fulfilled can I, discover? And so I created this platform mostly for myself, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. It was a little bit selfish at first because I just needed to feel a part of the world that I was just feeling intoxicated by.
Like an outlet.
Yeah, it was an outlet. And I played around with that, and finally people were letting me know, it's inspiring. And I feel like if there's anything I want my life to be, it's inspiring, right? So it grew into what it is today. Now a radio show. We're a multimedia platform. We teach people about how to be on social media and things like that. And so when I was invited to do a show on another radio station, Usala, I said, if I'm doing something great, I need all my friends, my family, I need them to be able to eat too. We're all eating. So I called Chantel and I called Mercedes, who's not here today. She's on sabbatical. And I said, there's this really great opportunity for us as Latinas to step up and do something good in this world. Do you want to do it together? They said yes, and here we are.
Yeah. Shout out to our Ushala LA, Ushala Radio, Internet Radio. It's an internet radio company and product based out of the body here in North Philadelphia. They're kind of our cousins here at WPPM. We got a lot of love for those folks. And in fact, in 2 weeks, one of your label mates, Edwin Decimore, is going to come on the show. Okay. And we're going to kick it, homie style. So I'm really excited about that episode. Okay, and, we have, as my producer, Samantha Gonzalez mentioned, you haven't had a male guest in quite some time. I'm like, well, they're not as marketable. I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, but to your point, Julie, it's really interesting because your story resonates so much with me because we've been doing this. We just celebrated a 6 year of the podcast version of the show.
Wow, really?
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I started podcasting when I didn't know anyone that podcasted. I was just some guy in a basement calling my friends. But it really has been, and I think you would agree, it's as much a spiritual journey as a media platform, right? Because because the blessing of this platform here at WPPM for me was that it gave me literally a platform and a place so that I could invite our friends and colleagues from the area to have these conversations and share with our local folks. Because let me tell you, 90% of the people that have watched this, either on Facebook Live, IG Live, listen to it on the radio app, listen to it as a podcast, aren't local people. Mm-hmm. And what they tell me from Washington State to Miami to Camden is that, wow, there's so many amazing people, particularly Latinos in Philadelphia. And I'm like, their voice their leadership goes well beyond the neighborhood. So you're right that it is a spiritual journey. I want to get Chantel in this conversation. Chantel, actually, we got to know each other through our work and right before you started this radio project. So I'm curious from your perspective, what have you gotten, particularly out of the radio show that you and Julie have and when Mercedes are doing? What have you gotten? What have you learned out of this experience? Because I can just tell from the social media, it's made quite an impact on you all.
Definitely. If you knew me, going on 4 years ago now, I probably would have turned Julie down doing this. So what this taught me about myself is I can do whatever I put my mind to.
Amen.
It has taught me growth. It has taught me to be open and to be real and to be honest about life as a mom, as a wife, and as a friend. So just the growth that, we can do this. We're strong, and let's make it happen.
So why do you say that sounds like words, but that's like seeing it as a friend who was worried about her for a time in terms of just being really reserved. That is 100% exactly what I see in you. There's been an amazing growth. Like, you are Superwoman now. It's amazing.
What do you think was holding you back initially? Or what do you think would have held you back in the past?
Insecurities, self-esteem issues. That's really what's holding me back, and being in this place of, looking at, I think, society's, what they're telling you success is. And that you have to follow society's rules of reaching success. And to me, I was like failing at society's, like, you have to go this route. And because I didn't look like what the success was, even though I had health, roof over my head, I have a husband who loves me, and then I was a new mom. To some people, that
sounds like a pretty good deal, Chantel.
Right. And here I am, like, all emotional about, like, oh my gosh, I don't know who I am. And I think once I finally, and Julie can attest to this, once I had my son, and it was like, I have to do better for him. And that was kind of my inspiration to just tell me, like, you know what, change your mode of thinking, get out of this negative space, think more positive, speak positive affirmations. And that kind of just switched.
It's interesting because I've heard that a lot. Again, I not only consider myself a broadcaster and I enjoy podcasting, but I'm really excited about the platform because it gives so many people who have not had a voice in the media a voice. Right. And Instagram's wonderful. I love following all of you all, especially our Latina leaders, and it's wonderful. And the visuals are great, and obviously videos. But this is such a very substantive format, or can be, right? To really learn and really express ourselves. And I would get so frustrated because, there was a time in my life, and Miguel knows, who's sitting in the back here in the cut, as we like to say, you'll hear from him later, is that there was a time in my life where basically any Latina that I knew of, that was doing anything, I said, please podcast, please do this. So it's so great to hear because there's so many definitions of success and so many perspectives. Right. And I think about how, and we'll talk about the presidential stuff. They say, wow, that's why I do this. It's like, I want to hear what the Chantels and the Julies are thinking about with politics or what's happening on Game of Thrones or what have you. So,
but don't say too much because Julie's not caught up yet.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, my wife's very happy with me because I got her the HBO Go app. So she's getting caught up. But so Julie, what have you learned from the radio show so far?
Well, it's been a transformative process. I think all of us did this really interesting series on Viera Vida when we first started our radio show. And that was one where we decided we were going to do positive affirmations and create a challenge where the rest of our listeners were doing positive affirmations every day. It wasn't until we did that challenge that I realized the insecurities and the lack of confidence and the things that beat us down every day. And even if it was just one or two people, every day that someone said that us saying the affirmations with them or them working through these processes with us has helped them, I realized that, it's great that it's helping me, but it feels bigger. It was an aha moment where it felt like you had something to give the world, and it was a purpose. It was maybe my why. So that's amazing to be able to have found.
Chantel, I wanted to ask you, and Julie, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this too, is that, and as you said earlier, it's easy to say girl power, unity, we're together. And I think about this for my own mission here, right, is that how do we take that into action? So obviously doing the show is a part of that, but how have you seen, and what are things people do that are watching this on social media or listening to the show or going to watch it later on YouTube? What are actionable things they can do to show that unity, to reach out to a friend, whether it's a sisterhood of women, whether it's neighbors, whether it's people that are involved in a social movement? What's an actionable step to support each other?
That is so important. I think support, sisterhood, and you know what it is? Realizing there is enough room at the table for all of us. There is enough of the pie for all of us to have a slice and eat. And I think that a lot of people think that, you know, oh no, I can't help the next person next to me because I need to make sure we eat. We can all eat.
Right.
You know, especially as like a Black and brown community, we really need to have each other's backs. And as far as sisterhood, just knowing if you see that woman walking down the street and she looks fly, okay, yes, you look fly.
It's okay
like,
to say that.
right. Like instead of thinking that, you know, we're going to be judged because we're telling someone, hey, you look really nice. Like, get out of your comfort zone.
Or even challenged. I think
Correct.
a lot of people feel that if you're bringing someone up, that means that you're pushing yourself down or you're taking away from an opportunity that you could have had.
Right.
Where if you expand the opportunities for the women and the Latinos or whoever else around you, and you're in that group, that creates a bigger pool for you to swim in. And it's not that like it can only be one. There's enough room in this world for all of us.
And that pool can build that support system.
Right.
That's right. Yeah, no, and it's what y'all are saying is so true because it is about these steps, right? So like it is about being intentional. Like for my day job, I have a coworker who's a brilliant guy, but he gets really nervous when he does the media stuff. He's like a media spokesperson for one of the areas of the work that we do. And I pulled him aside one day. I said, look, I'm not your boss. I really have no business saying this, but as a colleague and a friend, you need to get over this little phobia you got because the issue that he's dealing with is so critically important to our community, and he's one of the best spokespeople for it. And I said, you know, you got, and I said, what do you think it is? I'm just nervous. And he got into this thing like, you know, especially men, we're embarrassed to talk
Right.
about these kind of things. Oh, I'm
Right.
nervous, I'm tall, and I look goofy. And
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, you don't look goofy, brother, but, you know, just let it go, whatever it is. You know?
And that's important because the world could be waiting for him.
Right.
And they could be waiting for what he has to say. And I think that's what we have to realize. And people need to realize that I think we kind of get into ourselves. We're thinking, oh, what I have to say is not important. But you don't know until you open your mouth to speak. And what you might have said might have only helped one person, but that
That's
one
right.
person could have made an impact to then help someone else.
You know,
cycle.
say something, and we're going to get into this with the Mother's Day segment because my mother's the queen of this, is that I forget when it was. About a year ago, a group of people were sitting around, and someone who's a little younger than me, who I guess at one point I had mentored on some level, remembered something I did for them. And honestly, I don't even remember doing it. And it was a small thing. I don't know if it was giving somebody a ride, a word of encouragement. And that's why I'm always amazed. I don't know if y'all get this, like what people pick up on the show.
No, it's true.
You know, so
It's
what,
not
Julie,
what
what
you
kind of
often
feedback
think.
are you getting from your listeners? I'm curious.
That's funny
that
that
point.
you just brought that up because that was a perfect segue.
By the way, not to cut you off, Julie,
No,
but this
no.
has happened throughout this entire process. I send Julie ideas for the script. Oh my God, we were just thinking the same thing. I
same
send her the
thing.
follow-up script. You know, I said, but
You're
like-minded
in our head.
people are on the same page, and not to cut you, but it's like,
Yep.
but that we have to follow our hearts because we're listening to ourselves. It's when you deny yourself. It's when you're not listening to yourself, and you have this lack of confidence. Is when you're living scared.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's a freedom and that comes out of this, a creativity that comes out of this freedom.
Absolutely. And I think what people react to is that freedom and you expressing yourself genuinely. When we first started the show, we felt like there was this box we had to fit in. We were talking about this earlier. We felt like we had to dot every I, cross every T, when eventually there was a show in which we felt, to be honest, a little less prepared. And so we were just ourselves, and we were genuine, and we were honest, and everyone reacted to that show so much better. They just need you to be real. They just need to see real people experiencing things that they experience in the same life, and
Right.
and talking about it and being okay to talk about it. So people react to that.
And also people react to how we're giving of ourselves.
Right.
You know, that a lot of the support I've gotten over the years for the show is, you know, yeah, some people think what I have to say means something, but honestly, a lot of it is like, this is someone in my stage of my life, I'm a different stage of life you are, that's still going for it and still feels they have something to share. And that's so powerful. And we don't know a lot of times how we impact people, even the ones that never say anything. Sometimes, I'm sure y'all know this, to have fans or followers or people that are friends that maybe are too close to you to feel like they don't want to sound like a groupie by giving you a little love, but they're listening. And that's definitely the case.
That's true. That's very true.
So Chantel, you're going to outro us out, right?
Of course. See what I have here. All right. So we've had a great start. And when we come back from break, we are going to get into some mommy talk as we get closer to Mother's Day on the What's Next radio show and Ray's Latino Talk podcast with his special guest, yours truly, and Julie Viera from the Viera Vida radio show.
Before we go to the outro, why don't you remind people where they can listen to the show? Tell us a little bit about Ushala, and again, repeat your social media so people can follow your radio show and your platform.
Yes, so you can listen to us on usalaradio.com on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. It replays on Wednesdays at 2 and Saturday at 9 a.m. And you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at vieravida.com, Viera Vida.
We come back, we're going to talk about the Mothers in Our Lives, Mother's Day edition of Ray's Latino Talk podcast.
Listening to the What's Next radio show on WPPM LP 106.5 FM in Philadelphia and Ray's Latino Talk podcast. Listen to 106.5 FM in Philly at phillycam.org/listen and on the TuneIn app. And you can download Ray's Latino Talk podcast on iTunes and anywhere you can download the podcast. Listen in.
All right, so we wanted to shout out the listener of the week. I feel like we need a soundboard, like pew pew pew. Frederick Velez.
Pew, pew, pew.
Thank you. Frederick Velez III is a Puerto Rican activist based in Miami. He has been working hard to hold the administration accountable for its treatment of Puerto Rico and has been wordsmithing presidential campaigns for their use of Spanish on their websites and materials. Mil gracias, Frederick.
Frederick, you talk about someone that gave us some love. So Frederick just reached out this week on Twitter, DM me, said, hey, Ray, just want to give you a shout out. Love the work y'all are doing and want to help you find guests that are experts around this Puerto Rico issue. It's something he's very passionate about. And let me tell you, this wordsmithing thing is real. The guy, what he does is every time a presidential candidate announces, he goes onto their website. He examines if they have Spanish, how much Spanish, how good is it. He does a blog about it. He gives a grade. So he's actually providing a couple of Frederick is like on it. So I got to give Frederick a lot of loving. Anytime we can shout out Miami and just make us feel a little warmer and cooler about ourselves. So again, we're really happy to have Julie Viera, great friends of ours like Julie Viera and Chantel Brown from the Viera Vida radio show and the Viera Vida brand, as they've discussed here on the show. And it's even better that they're here just days before Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. So let's start with, hey, there's nothing more important than mothers in our lives. So just like to open up the floor to this conversation to the Viera Vida family about what Mother's Day means to you all.
I love that you said the Viera Vida family because that's exactly what we want this to be and we want it to feel like. So one disclaimer that we always make for those of us, especially, people who maybe didn't have the traditional family, that your mom, your family, your relationships don't necessarily have to be limited by blood. So we have a lot of mentors and family members and people who we even think of as mamas and papas who aren't necessarily the ones who birthed us, but our moms are amazing and deserve this special day.
Yeah.
Talk to me, Chantel, about mommy.
Yes. Talk to you about mommy. My mommy. I always love my mama. She's my favorite girl. No, really, I do love my mom. Very supportive, very there for me. And shout out to the women also in my life who are not necessarily my mom biologically, but they were there for me whenever I needed them. So yeah, they're amazing.
And I think it's nice that we're having this conversation not only to give our moms the love and respect they deserve, but also the fact, Chantel, you're a mother.
Yes.
And I'm, one of the things that I've noticed that some of the social media y'all have done and some of the vlogging that Julie and you all do relates to your experiences as a mother.
Yes.
And so, again, I thought that was very giving of you. Can you share some of the content that you shared, particularly after you had your second child?
Yes. So I don't know why I thought this, that, since I've already had one child, having another child will be maybe easy. I don't know. That might have been the sentiment I had in my mind. And then why? I have no idea. But then I had my second child. She'll be 4 months very soon. And there was just things that I learned the second time around. Right. And it was just funny how you think that you always know something, but in life, no matter what it is, you're always learning. You should always be open to learning because there's always new experiences. Even if you thought you've done that before, this time around, it might be different. There might be something new you learn. And that's kind of what that taught me, giving me the perspective of life is funny that way. You think you know it all, but you don't. So be open to learn and to relearn, re-educate yourself.
A teacher too. As a mother, I feel like in every way that and every expression on Viera Vida, we try to think of the different perspectives that we have. And your perspective as a mother, Chantel, has been super enlightening for us. So we don't just look at things in the same naivete, I would say, that we did before. And that's why you had a really good post recently, the postpartum one.
Yeah, because I definitely learned about one of the things that I want to keep in mind, because I know this was a question that Rafael told us, or Ray told us that he was going to be sending to us about why is it important for us to talk about issues impacting us after childbirth. And I told Julie today when I looked at Meghan Markle, she already has a photo of her out and about with the new baby. And she looks really well put together and she looks really nice. But as a mom who's done this 2 times, I was like, wow, she's already out of the house. Wow. She's already like, how are you walking around? Because I know the pain that your body is in because like what you just went through, whether it be cesarean or natural. And like me, I just wanted to lay. Everything on me was sore the second time around. My hands from holding on to like the bars from all the pushing. So I was just looking at her like, wow, I think that us as a society, we need to know that mothers have gone through, no matter what type of birthing experience they have had, they've gone through a lot and their bodies need that time to heal. And their mental also needs time to heal from that. And I think sometimes we're expected to be pushed, especially with women working, that they have to get back to work right away and not allowing them that time to bond with their baby. And that's why I think it is very, very important that anytime we can, if the platform is given, we should be talking about mothers and the postpartum. Because I think that we take it for granted that she's just supposed to get up and just get back to regular life.
So not to be a cynic, though, but you, as a mother, we talked about this, you have to look through the signs of societal pressure, right? So the one thing I noticed in looking at Meghan Markle's pictures, for example, she just had a baby, but society, in her society, you know, you go, you take pictures, you show the baby, but her legs are really far apart. That, to me, if you're in tacos, that shows that you're experiencing
some type of pain,
discomfort, right? Her hand, she wanted to put it on her belly, and it really quickly changed to go to the baby's head. So when you have people or you've experienced health issues or different things that are considered invisible to the normal world, you look for those signs so that you can be supportive of other people and say, like, no, like, this may look like it's easy, but she's just handling it with grace. No,
and then and it speaks to the pressures that one way or another, mothers, especially in this modern age, are dealing with, right? So in some cultures, they really push natural childbirth, and or other forms of fertilization methods, or depending on your family, depending on your religious background, depending on, or look down upon.
And they all have a say about it.
They all got to say it, and then you can't win, right? So like, I'm sure Meghan didn't want to get out of bed, but there's all this pressure in society, and there's probably some money on the line if she can get up and dial up for 20 minutes. So there is a lot of pressure on women, and especially I'm thinking about women of color and Latinas, like in this modern age. It's like there's the old generational stuff. They're sort of meshing that with your personal views now in the sort of modern society. And, my wife, she was so strong, and thinking about her as we lead to Mother's Day, because, we were together for 5 years, and we went through a lot of ups and downs trying to have a baby. And, I want to have her on the show to share the details of that at some point. But, and then she didn't. So then we adopted our oldest. And then 2 weeks after we got up in our house, we realized she was pregnant.
Wow.
So we went from 0 to 2 in 10 months. And, just the ups and downs, all the stuff you're talking about, like we spent so much time making sure she was okay when she had the baby, that in hindsight, wow, I wish she could have stayed home longer.
Right.
And I wish we could have anticipated some of the things she went through after the baby.
Right.
And, the fact that I can imagine on some level, not having your first child, your first natural child, until your late 30s is a whole other mental the pressures of that. And so it's just another level of motherhood, right? That you love your mom, and I want to talk about mom in a second, but and then go later in your life, you have this other mother in your life that's so important, and there's a whole set of challenges that you don't know until you go through it as a partner.
Well, right. I want to hear more about your experience with your mother. What's that like? What's that relationship mean to you?
Well, the way I like to put it with my mother, Sonia Collazo, is that, we all have, especially in our community, we have heroes and icons, right? So if it's Sonia Sotomayor, Roberto Clemente, J-Lo for some people. I was
fabulous.
so blessed because, yes, absolutely. But I was so blessed because I always had a Puerto Rican hero, and that was my mother. And so
That's awesome.
Sonia Collazo not only is a wonderful person, and I know our friend in the back, Miguel, also has warm memories of ways she mentored him. She recommended him for a job to work for me once.
Wow.
She was
His
so once he
smile
had
is
that
really big
reference.
right now.
Once he had that reference, he was good. But the thing I can say about my mom is that I know so many people that say she's like my mother, or I wish she was my mother, or she got me out of being homeless when I was 9, or she's like an aunt to me, a grandmother to me. And I don't even know most of these people. I had no idea what she's impacted people, and from church, from family, from the community here in Philadelphia. Just an amazing person. And it's been an incredible journey because she said something the other day at my last birthday. I'm getting a little old to be hype about birthdays. But the thing she said to me, which was one of the nicest things, she said, "I'm really proud of you, Ray, because you care about people." And that's, that sums up my mother right there.
Wow, that's really inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that because it's just some vulnerability. So thanks for being that way and sharing with us. When we come back, we're going to get into a little bit of analysis of some recent polling about Latino voters and our take on the president and upcoming elections. So you're listening to Ray's Latino Talk podcast and the What's Next radio show on WPPM 106.5 FM in Philadelphia.
You are listening to WPPM LP 106.5 FM in Philadelphia, and you are listening to the What's Next radio show and Ray's Latino Talk podcast. This episode is dedicated to the memory of Kendrick Castillo. Castillo was a high school student who lost his life during a mass shooting at a Colorado high school this week. Castillo ran down the shooter and saved countless lives. Prayers out to the Kendrick family and to the Castillo family. Or actually, I'm sorry, Kendrick was his name. Kendrick and Castillo family.
Welcome back to the show. This is Julie. I'm here with Chantel, and we are from the Viera Vida show. And on the Stacking 20s segment, we analyze the presidential campaign and the Stack 20s for the Love That Shouldn't Hurt campaign. Cristina Vega's movement supports survivors of domestic violence. Ray, we wanted to get your insights on a fascinating new survey that's been released by a polling firm called Latino Decisions. They've partnered with the NALEO, which is NALEO Education Fund, to get a more accurate understanding of the Latino electorate heading into the 2020 cycle. Two major takeaways from this survey, and the first was large majorities of Latinos believe that President Trump and Republicans are acting openly hostile and racist towards Latinos. While this may not be surprising, what does this mean for upcoming elections?
So I encourage people, thank you again, Julie and Chantel, for joining me on the show. In the Stacking 20 segment, for people that aren't familiar, the Love Shouldn't Hurt campaign is our friend Cristina Vega's effort and really a movement and organization she's creating to support particularly Latina survivors of domestic abuse. She has a documentary she just debuted recently, and there's going to be another showing of that film at Aspida High School here in Philadelphia on June 30th. So for people that are in the Philadelphia area, and we're going to support her 1,000% with her effort to support our women, our community. But to your question, Julie, first of all, I don't think it's a surprise that 80% of us have an unfavorable rating.
Why are you not surprised?
Towards Trump. It was good to see that rating is also comparable to the Republicans in general, because I think it's showing that Latinos are paying more and more attention to the fact that it's not just about this one bad guy. There's an entire party, whether it's Attorney General Barr, whether it's the Republicans in the Senate in particular, and really throughout Congress and in the political community, that are really being complicit in not only, obviously, this real right-wing, anti-Latino, anti-immigrant administration, but really this erosion of our democracy. And I think that Latinos are paying attention to that. People didn't see that there's been some final sort of analysis of the 2018 election, that we had a 40% increase in the amount of Latinos that came out for the midterm election. So in some states, it was up to 80%. So we're paying more attention, particularly our young people in our community. But the question is, how do we take this disrespect, the falta de respeto, how do we take that? And how do we turn it into action? Because we know these elected officials, this is not the first politician that has wanted to do harm to us.
Right.
But the question is, how do we mobilize our community? And to your question, your point earlier, Chantel, take personal responsibility. Every cousin, every friend, every 19-year-old that needs to register, take personal responsibility to turn out our community. And Julie and Chantel, with some of the work y'all have done, you have some experience with this. I'm curious, particularly you, Julie, what your thoughts around the experience you've had working in the community to engage Latinos in the political process. What are some of the things you've learned about what resonates, messages, tactics, so we can turn people out, particularly next year?
Right. So we didn't mention this earlier, but I've been working in the political sector for 10 years now. And my day job, aside from Viera Vida, I actually work for a political advocacy organization.
And that's how we've worked together. We work together, in all of our endeavors.
Right.
Sure.
And one thing, the biggest takeaway actually is that we shouldn't be discouraged right now, right? Because we're worried about this, but we're past the persuasion process, right? We don't have to let people know what's bad. At this point, it's very clear. So we just need them to take action. And I have two answers. One is a little bit more of a strategic answer, and one is a little bit more of a social and emotional answer. So strategically, digital. We need to be online. We need to be using ads properly. We need to be conveying the right messages. We need to make sure that our voices are being heard in platforms like yours, in radio and media and communications, in very strategic and smart digital persuasion. And the second part is more social, where we need to be represented. The people who are sharing these messages, we do a lot of polling, and we find that when we're getting the most feedback, or action takers as we call them, it's people who have spoken to people of color and look like them, who have experienced what they've experienced, who understand them socioeconomically or in whichever way. You have to feel like you relate to the person giving you the message you're trying to convey to the world. You can't just have somebody, not to be impolite, but if you're an old white male, you may not resonate with the Latino audience in the same way you did in past elections. Right now, we need people who look like us, who are fired up, who have experienced what we experienced, because we can trust that. We can trust that that's genuine. So we're finding in the polling that that's what really is making a change.
Chantel, I don't think you'll be surprised to learn, and I know you looked at this polling earlier, is that the biggest lesson outside of the attitude towards Trump and the Republicans was that when Latinos are polled, and this has been consistent for the last several years, the biggest issue that we identify, yes, immigration is important. Yes, the issues of Puerto Rico are important. Yes, even economic issues are important. But the number one issue across the board for Latinos around the country is healthcare, very similar to the mainstream population.
Right.
And so, Chantel, I know that resonates with you. And how do we, from the work that we've done, you have any thoughts around how we sort of mobilize? Now that we know Latinos are very much healthcare voters, how do we talk to our folks around that issue to take their concerns into voting?
So I want to get my friend in the back. Did you hear the question, Miguel? Because I think you have good insight on this as well.
Yes, we need Miguel Concepcion to step into this conversation. Miguel, talk to us.
Miguel's not,
because Miguel knows the community. Yes,
I know you know how to mobilize the community around healthcare issues. So talk to us.
Well, I think that the same approach that we have used for the general community, it needs to be used at the Latino side, but also keeping in mind that we're bilingual. So don't speak to us in one language when our community now are multilingual. So we're now going between Spanish and English, and the majority of our youth now are bilingual or they're English speakers. So address us the same way that you're addressing the mainstream, but keeping in mind that there is still that need to address that Spanish side of us and to be able to resonate in with the issues that affect us as well.
And I
agree with that.
You're absolutely right about that. And I think because really one of the things that the parties and political folks, especially on the presidential side, don't get oftentimes is that they're not speaking discussing these issues, hitting the specific issues and how people resonate them. And we've done this all together over many cycles, knocking on doors in North Philly. And the healthcare issue is really 7 different types of issues within healthcare on some level, right?
Right.
So there's the mom that's got her son that lives with her, that's working, and he's going to be off her healthcare in a year and a half, and she's worried about him. There's the anciana that the prescription drugs are too expensive. Yes. There's the guy whose cousin is opioid addicted, and his cousin doesn't have his healthcare is not sufficient enough to keep him in rehab long enough to get him straight, so he's in and out all the time, and it's snowballing into these issues. There's a person with a pre-existing condition that has to go do a GoFundMe to raise $200,000 so that their wife can stay alive.
Right.
So how do we? So it's not just talking about healthcare. It's about talking about the real issues within that.
Right. And I really think that we need a level playing field for healthcare for all. The same opportunity to the same treatment, the same healthcare. And as a mom, with everything that you were naming, this might seem simple, but we're supposed to have our children vaccinated in order to even go to daycare, not even just public school. And then I have to pay a bill for that. So while they're telling me, oh, no, it's supposed to be covered under the insurance, it's not, because the insurance plan I'm under. And then it's expensive.
Amen,
and then you're telling me I have to go at the next visit, get 2 or 3 more. Yeah. So it's just like.
So I want the people that are going to listen to this. Now, you're seeing it on Facebook Live, IG Live, YouTube, and all these other platforms. But the people that are just going to listen to this, what's happening now is the key to political organizing, which is head nods. So as Chantel's breaking down what's really the real deal about how this really impacts people in their pocketbook and their daily lives, Miguel, Samantha, me, the gentleman outside, we're nodding our heads, because that's how we connect with these issues. With somebody sitting up on a stage that looks like, in a $10,000 suit, saying it very nicely, they have nice degrees and they're very articulate and they're saying it in these platitudes. Yes, theoretically that's a connect.
Yeah.
But the people in the neighborhood that didn't, some of our people, Miguel, who just came from Puerto Rico, don't even know where they live. They don't even be downtown. They don't even know how to, if you give them a car and told them to get to the airport, so we have to talk about these things in language and in the vernacular, the way people understand it.
Right, because how can I trust you? I don't know you, and I feel like you don't know my culture.
Going beyond even language access to the education and the resources. And an example that we could give is my husband actually works for financial services at Temple Hospital. And had I not had the access to him, to this mentor, to this person who really understands the insurance process, I would be thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. And a lot of that has to do with surprise billing. And had I not understood, for example, this happened with you too, Chantel, you can attest to this. I had a bill for $15,000 because I had gone to an emergency room, and in that emergency room, I couldn't choose my provider. It's an emergency, so they were out of network, and I got a $15,000 bill. I let my husband know, and my husband said, okay, no problem, calls me in the morning, babe, you have $0 to pay, because he knows that you can have that rebuild under the provisions of an emergency situation.
Oh my God, how many times do you get a bill? It's about another head nodder, what you just said. How many times do you get a bill and you're like, well, I think that's going to eventually get paid. And then you don't know. And
you
then
get ready to set up a payment.
And then it ends up on your credit. And you're like, hold on, I would have thought. And then look, we're blessed. We're privileged. Everyone here has gotten an education.
Yes.
We understand the world. You have a husband in the healthcare industry. And we ever struggle sometimes trying to figure it out. Can you imagine? La gente humilde en la calle. Come on. They're going to.
And people would pay it. People, they'll let you give that money. The insurance company is not going to be like, oh, mama, did you try this? No, they're going to be like, how much can you give me yesterday?
Exactly. Miguel, yo quiero usted explicarle esto en español. I want you to break this down, because you can give a lesson. And I want my political, my hotshot DC consultant friends that work on presidential campaigns and are hotshot lawyer in DC. I want them to write this down. They want to transcribe this. Miguel, para la gente que quiere conseguir el voto boricua, si no importa si en Pennsylvania, Florida, Kissimmee, Fort Lauderdale, the Puerto Rican vote in Texas, North Carolina, para el voto boricua, brother. Dale un consejo for people that are looking to tap into the vital Puerto Rican vote. Give them a little word of advice. Pero por favor, brother, idioma de Dios, en español. Como dicen los boricuas, educado como usted, por favor.
En español.
Sí, el voto boricua, hermano.
Bueno, si quieren conseguir el voto boricua en donde quiera que sea, en cualquier estado, una de las primeras cosas que tienen que entender es cómo funciona el voto boricua. En Puerto Rico se vota un 98.9%. Y esto es el pan de cada día. En Puerto Rico hay 3 deportes. Los deportes, la política y la religión. Para tú entender el voto boricua, tú tienes que entender esos 3 factores.
Amén.
Claro.
El puertorriqueño es extremadamente pacífico, apasionado, diría yo, en lo que es la política. Y lo que sucede es que el puertorriqueño aquí no entiende y no se siente parte de este proceso. Y en parte de eso es que quieren educar de la misma manera que educan aquí a todo el mundo. El puertorriqueño sabe lo que es la política. Y si tú me preguntas a mí personalmente, no hay mejor político que un político puertorriqueño. Ellos saben mover las masas. ¿Tú quieres aprender a mover una masa boricua? Pues entonces estudia un poquito más lo que es Puerto Rico. Y entiende los issues que le afectan a la gente. Y ves al grano. Vamos a dejarnos de este juego de que si hablas de esta manera, los problemas son iguales. La salud, educación y trabajo.
Miguel, we're gonna. I gotta take one. You gotta make this quick, but we gotta deep dive this a little bit. I'm gonna go there because if we don't go there, we're not gonna survive.
Go there, Ray.
There's 15-20% of us, and I'm talking about Puerto Ricans. They're gonna vote for this man Trump next year, and we all know it. Everyone got a cousin that they ain't talking to. They got a loved one, and see, I'm a head bobber. We head bob here. We head bob here, and we don't understand it. It's driving us crazy. We're losing loved ones. We're losing. I mean, some people losing sexual
If you
partners.
can figure it out, can you let us know?
Okay, but I've got a clue. I got a clue here. So Miguel, I'm gonna say it. You don't gotta say it. There are Latino pastors in this country, Puerto Rican, all these, who are basically getting bought off by the Republicans and the conservative movement on some level. They're getting a cut, and they go in the pulpit in Spanish with our humble people. And I'm thinking about all our evangelical Puerto Ricans that have moved here from the island that are in transition, our Latin American immigrants that go to those storefront. You know, there used to be a restaurant, now it's a church down the way, and they say these things, and they peel off a group of our community, and they say Trump came from God. You can't support these Democrats because they're socialists. They want to kill babies, and they're okay with gay people. And I'm just saying it because if we don't say it, we're not going to resolve this issue. And that's a big chunk of it. So I don't want to get you in trouble, Miguel, with our Puerto Rican pastors that may be more conservative. But I do want you to touch on briefly the dynamic of working with our Latino religious communities to just give them the facts. It's not to say, being Republican is one thing, and being for this man who doing harm to us every day is another. So I want to get that. It's not about being a Republican or even being conservative.
It's a human issue.
It's about this man, okay, and this movement that he's created. So Miguel, talk to me. Lo evangélico, the religious community, give them a tip in español because you're giving them big time information. They got to write this down. But that's a factor, ¿verdad que sí?
Eso es un factor bien importante.
Sí.
Tú sabes, si tú te vas a parar en el púlpito a predicar, pues entonces predica la realidad. No predique lo que te conviene o por cuánto te hayan pagado. Las realidades son realidades y al César hay que llamarlo por el César y a Dios lo que es debido. Y al político lo que es del político. Si usted se va a parar en un púlpito a predicar, entonces predique de acuerdo a las necesidades de su pueblo. No esté predicando a las necesidades de su bolsillo.
Woo! Damn, Miguel, that's what I call stacking 20. We stack truth here on Radio Latino Talk Podcast. Julie, did you have any thoughts before we go to the next segment?
No, you left us with some fire. So when we come back from the break, Viera Vida, our team is going to be announcing some really big news about our summer series on the What's Next radio show and Raise Latino Talk Podcast.
We're coming back. But y'all do your thing.
You are listening to WPPM LP 106.5 FM in Philadelphia at PhillyCam, #PeoplePoweredMedia. On the last segment of the show, we are going to reveal some of Viera Vida's summer plans.
Well, this is exciting. I love getting the scoop here. First of all, I just want to thank not only the Viera Vida family. We got a lot of love for you guys as always, and our Ushala family, our extended family. But I want to thank all the people that are watching on Facebook Live and IG Live. I know some of y'all could be watching the Sixer game. You got one eye on us and one eye on the process. I hope that group of immigrants are getting it done. But seriously, just really appreciate our folks. I mean, there's people that dedicate some time to watch us here, and I hope y'all appreciate the conversation. And our commitment here is to be as real as possible, right. You know. And we had to say those last couple of things, and I was so happy to hear Julia and Chantel, that healthcare piece. I mean, that is the key. That's how we have to talk about these things in our community. It is no more important than our health. And Miguel and I, the idioma, we had to go there. We're like I see Miguel. We had to go there. So we're gonna keep going in this final segment of the show. And again, Julia and Chantel from the Viera Vida brand and radio show. We're so excited. And in the last segment, I wanted to share y'all some announcements. I got an exclusive here. This is very exciting.
Oh yeah, this is the first media stop that we're discussing this really big project. So Miguel, we got this prepared in 2 languages. We do, because everything that we're doing with this project is bilingual. Basically, actually, I'm shooting this your way, Miguel. I'm shooting this your way.
Uh-oh.
What do we have going on,
Miguel's
Miguel?
become quite a big part of the show today.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Well, we are, and this is actually an excitement, because you are right. It is the first time this is our first radio show. We are introducing Exclusivo US, which is a project of Viera Vida and Concepcion LLC, which is created and facilitating events for networking, socializing, and building communities rooted in the Latino community. We welcome and support to all, and we are going to be kicking off our summer series with the first event, which will be at Salsa on the Square, which is located at 2126 East Lehigh Avenue. It is going to be June 13, so the second Thursday of the month, from 5:30 to 9:30, and it will allow people to have an opportunity to connect within all sectors. We do have a small registration, but I could assure you that the takeaway you're going to take home, it is something to remember for. It is going to become a memorabilia for Inclusivo and part of our kickoff. So
this is really exciting. So for people that maybe are either in Philadelphia and interested in this, or they're in the region, we got a lot of people watching from Vineland, from Camden, Central Pennsylvania, Reading, Allentown, Lancaster, Wilmington, Delaware. They're welcome to come down. So tell people what kind of networking, what should we expect with this summer event series?
Pues sí, I think for us, it's really important that everybody feels included. And part of feeling included, at least in terms of Latino culture, especially leading up to a big year like 2020, is that we as Latinos, and I think a lot of minorities do this, where you feel excluded from the majority, so you also segment yourself within your own communities, right? Mm-hmm. So there's the Puerto Ricans and the Dominicans and the Ecuadorians here and the Mexicans there. But why don't we come together to share about what Latinidad means? And we want to share our culture, but obviously we're rooted in Latino culture. All of us are Latinas and Latinos, but we're open. We want to include everybody and teach them about what it means to really talk to a Latino, to really be involved in our culture.
You know, that's so important, because one of the best pieces of feedback I get on the show is from non-Latinos to say, Ray, we like to watch because, first of all, it's so good to learn the Latino perspective on things. We don't get it in our daily lives, and we're surprised how much we relate to it. Right. And also that they want to learn more. You know, people don't want to be ignorant, you know, so they want to know. And, you know, I'm so amazed when someone like is scared to say, is it okay if I call y'all Latino or Hispanic or Puerto Rican, or what's this Latinx thing about? I don't want to be I don't want to come off ignorant, you know. So I think this is a great platform to provide non-Latinos an opportunity to learn more about us in a comfortable setting.
It's also a place where we can feel orgullosa, you know, of our culture. We can be proud of it, and we don't have to feel, I guess, a lot of times in mainstream and in maybe our 9-to-5s, we feel the need to hide that a little bit. I mean, I've had jobs before where if I had a conversation in Spanish, I literally have had a boss say, why are you speaking that here? You know, so this is a place.
Which is illegal.
which is illegal.
Just let everybody know.
Yes. Keep it clear. By the way, that gets into the political stuff because
they cannot tell you cannot speak your language.
And I got a buddy, Angel, who, was a blue-collar guy, successful guy, working man, and he's very passionate against Trump. Mm-hmm. And he gets hated on, and he gets all this stress from his white coworkers who are Trump supporters on Facebook. So you can imagine thinking about how many Latinos, we're privileged, right? That we work in relatively safer spaces.
Right,
but you can imagine, especially our working class people that go to construction sites or are women that work in various industries that go to environments that are like politically hostile to our identities.
Right.
And having to feel like, wow, I can't speak in Spanish, or I can't, don't feel comfortable discussing an alternative viewpoint on that political issue, or someone said a racial slur, but like, well, that was an anti-immigrant thing. You're not an immigrant, like, that are in this awkward situation. So having a safe space is very important.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because I don't know if people know this about Viera Vida Inclusivo US, but we're actually nonpartisan. We educate people on how to vote, on what both sides of the issues are and things like that. We're not the type that if you're one of my closest friends, like one of my best friends in the world, is a Republican, and that's fine. At the end of the day, we need to learn about each other's perspective and be able to talk about it in a positive way so that they can maybe see someone who's not attacking them as a person, whoever they is, the other side, so who's not attacking them as a person, who says, look, this is the human rights issue that affects me. Do you see that now? And they're more willing to listen to that.
Absolutely. We have to wrap this up pretty soon. We have to get the studio ready for the next show, the Black Triple Show here at WPPMLP. But Chantel, any final thoughts?
No, I think my beautiful friends here covered it. Well, actually, yes. Follow Viera Vida.
Yes.
Follow Inclusivo US. So you can find out about our summer series. Again, this is social networking, coming together, building community, one meetup at a time. It's going to be so much fun. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
We had a lot of fun today. Woo!
Thank you for joining Raise Latino Talk podcast and the What's Next radio show, WPPMLP Philadelphia, 106.5 and the 215. Thank you, our Viera Vida family. And Miguel Concepcion for bringing the flavor, bringing the heat. Associate producer Samantha Gonzalez. You just need to calm down a little bit, Samantha. A little too loud out there. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful weekend.